Okay, guys. So before we start practicing, as I told you yesterday, we are gonna be first of all looking at the response tips from the ETS, so that you guys see what the ETS says about your responses, how your responses should be, or what they expect. Okay, so let's see. Okay, this is the one. Okay. So by the way, this you can find this online in the ETS website. So this is basically the examples that they have for each question. Then they have one for each question. So you could read them in case you guys want to see what the ETS says. Okay, so it says speaking practice question 1 is the independent speaking practice. So here's a question. Elizabeth, please, could you read what's here on the box?
Okay, and some people enjoy taking risks and trying new things. Others are not adventurous. They are cautious and prefer to avoid danger. Which behavior do you think?
Okay, so actually we answered this question yesterday, right? I don't know which one, but some of you answered this question. So let's see what the tips from the ETS are. They say to respond to this particular question, you should first clearly state what your opinion is. This is obviously the introduction, right? So do you think it is better to take risk or to be cautious? So clearly state your opinion first. That's your introduction. I think it's better to take risks. I think it's better to be cautious. Answer the question using the same verb, right? Clearly state that. Then they say, then you should give reasons to support your opinion. So I don't know, you could say, I think it's better to take risks because that way, I don't know. Or I think it's better to be cautious in order to avoid any sort of accidents, let's say. And then they say, if you take the position that you think it's better to take risks and try new things, you might give an example of a time when you or someone that you know took a risk and was rewarded, right? Look at how what they say, what they suggest is that you guys use personal examples, right? Because they say you might give an example of a time when you or someone that you know took a risk and was rewarded. So they preferably want you to go with a personal example. Now that doesn't mean that you can have a different type of example. You could talk about a general example as well, because this is just a suggestion, right? But it's better if you talk about yourself, right? If you take it personally. Then they say the example should have good details, and the relationship between the example and your opinion should be clear. So this is what I was telling you yesterday, right? Include details in your example. Tell me names, tell me when this happened, where it happened, what you were doing. So don't just say, for example, so I remember that when I was a kid, I used to take a lot of risks. No, tell me what risks you took, right? When I was a kid, I used to, I don't know, I used to take difficult classes. I used to travel alone. I would like to sometimes go out late at night, right? So you could start giving details about what specific risks you took. And they say that the relationship between the example and your opinion should be clear. So if you're saying that you shouldn't be taking risks because it's dangerous, then you have to say that, well, I took a risk and it was dangerous, right? It has to be clear. Now, they say if you take the position that it's better to be cautious, you might give an example of a situation where being cautious was beneficial. You might continue to develop your response by contrasting what would happen in this situation if a risk were taken. So, contrasting is another way to continue supporting your idea, right? You could say, I prefer to be cautious because that way you live longer. For example, I don't know, I never go out late at night. And then you can contrast that with what would happen if a risk were taken. You could say, if I took the risk of going out late at night, then I would be, I don't know, I would be risking my own safety, right? Given that lately, all I hear in the news is a number of violent crimes against, I don't know, against young girls, whatever. But you could contrast that with what would happen, right, in that situation. They say, keep in mind that there's no correct answer to this question. Both behaviors, either behavior can be supported with examples. The important part of this task is to make sure that you state your opinion and develop your response with good examples and relevant details, right? As all speaking tasks, your response should be intelligible. That means it should be clear, easy to understand. It should demonstrate effective use of grammar and vocabulary, and it should be well developed and coherent. This task is scored using this reference, right? So that's what the ETS says. That's exactly what you guys have to do, and it's what we were discussing yesterday and on Tuesday, right? So I'm sending you guys the link in case you guys wanna check it out. Is this okay? Do you guys have any questions before we start practicing? Okay. So in that case, let's start practicing. You guys are going to be answering different questions. Let's start with the first one. It says, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? It is important to remember and learn from the past. Use details and examples to explain your opinion. Now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay. So maybe Micaela, do you want to go first?
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
I strongly agree with that it's important to remember and learn from the past, since when you do that, you can't make the same mistakes. For example, or for instance, when I was at school, I didn't pay attention to my teacher, and I failed in my exam, and then in the next exam, I uh, I pay more attention and I passed.
Okay, good. This was similar to the one we did, well, to the example that we saw yesterday, right? And you answered it well. You will organize your time really well. You had a good example as well with enough details. Maybe talk about what test it was, right? What exam it was, give more details. That's the only thing I'd say. But overall, it was very supposed to be kind of great way to start. Let's see, let's do another one. It says, some people who unexpectedly receive a large amount of money spend it on practical things, while others spend it for pleasure only. Which do you think is better and why? Now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your response. Okay. So maybe Christian?
Okay. In my opinion, I think that it's better to spend money on practical things if you receive a large quantity of money, because you have to be smart and invest that money and in different things like study or maybe business, because you don't know when you are going to need that money, or you can face economic crisis in the future. For example, people who earn or who win lotteries in the US tend to spend the money in Paris and they don't invest it, and at the end they broke out.
Okay, at the end, they go broke, right? Or they go in bankruptcy. Okay. Good, well done. So everything was great aside from your reason. It's important to be smart to invest the money so that you don't lose it all. And you had a good example as well. With enough details as well, you said how these people make the money or win the money, in this case in the lottery, how they spend it and how they end up losing it. And it was related to your reason. So great. I don't think I have any comments. That was a perfect response.
Okay, thank you.
Guys, let's see this one here. It says, state whether you agree or disagree with the following statement. Then explain your reasons using specific details in your explanation. Students should not be allowed to bring cell phones into the classroom. Now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay. So maybe Elizabeth? I'm having problems with your connection, Elizabeth. Because we can't hear you well. Can you hear us, Elizabeth? Hello, Elizabeth? Okay. So maybe someone else in the meantime? Carolina, maybe? Carolina, are you there?
Andrea, I try.
Yes, Tamara, please go.
Okay. Okay. I disagree with that the student should be alone with free cell phones because it's the new normal life, and that is a for the new generation. For example, I am a teacher, and I give my class with cell phone. The teenager needs to use that for the information, and school has internet. As result, is necessary internet, cell phones for our life.
Okay, good. Careful with that structure. You could say it's necessary to have with a verb. It is necessary to have cell phones, the internet in our lives, or cell phones, the internet are necessary for our lives. Right, one of the two. Well done. It was a good response too. So some comments I could make. First, careful in the beginning with your introduction. So careful with agree, right? When you say agree or disagree, remember that you could either say, I agree with the statement when you have a noun. I agree with this. I agree with you. I agree with the statement. But if you're going to repeat the statement, what you should be doing, you need to say, I agree that, or I disagree that, right? So in this case, I disagree that students should not be allowed. And also careful with the pronunciation of these words because you're going to see them a lot, to be allowed. So I disagree that students should not be allowed to bring cell phones. And you had a good response, a good reason, sorry, because it's something normal for our new generations, they need them. And you had a good example as well. So just careful with the introduction, careful with a little bit of the grammar. And what else? And yeah, nothing else really. Well done. You guys, let's see this one here. The question says, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? It is important to learn about other cultures. Use details and examples to explain your opinion. And you will now have 15 seconds to prepare your response. Okay, so maybe who wants to go? Who wants to go? Does anyone want to try this one? No, nobody really wants to go? Maybe Christian?
Okay.
Go ahead.
I definitely agree with the statement that it is important to learn from other cultures because you learn many things, many aspects of their lives. You know how the laws are handle the people. For example, when I traveled to the US, I could see that all the people work, study, and they plan their lives to get independence from very early ages. So as a conclusion, I think that we could abstract all these aspects in our countries.
Okay, we could abstract. What do you mean? Maybe we could apply, right? All of these things to in our countries.
Yes, that's better.
Great, so nice. So yes, it is important to learn about other cultures. Maybe I would say be clear with your reason. You know, when you're preparing, try to think of the reason. What you said at the end was really good, that it's important to learn about other cultures so you can take the good stuff and apply it to your culture, right? Try to say that at the beginning. Because in the beginning, in your reason, basically you just said that it is important to learn about other cultures, but you didn't say why, right? You said it's important to learn about their way of style, their lifestyles, how the laws are in different countries, how the people are, but you didn't say why it's important to learn about them, right? You had a good reason, but you waited until the end to say it. So say it in the beginning and then go with the example. You could say, for example, when I went to the US, I was able to see that teenagers start or become independent very early in their lives. And then you can say that you could apply that into your culture, right? So that's the only thing that I'd say. Try to say your reason in the beginning. Let's always ask yourself the why in the beginning or when you're preparing so that you could say it initially. Okay? That's the only thing I'd say. Good job. Okay. So here we have more and more people are buying items on the internet and from magazines or catalogs. Other people prefer shopping in a store. Which do you prefer and why? Now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, so Micaela, please. You could go now. Okay, Micaela?
Okay.
Go ahead.
I prefer to buy items from a store because I think it's better to buy that items there. Uh, since you can see what they are like, what they are like. Um, uh, for instance, if you buy a dress, you can see the large, and then it can fit you better. And or if you because I finished there.
Okay, good. So yes, you are great. If you are buying a dress, you can try it on, see if it fits you, and buy it, right? Leave it there. If you need to be constantly looking at the timer, see if you don't have enough time, then just finish there, right? But it was good. Well done. What I would say, and it's similar to what I was saying to Christian before, try to prepare your reason. You had a great reason. You said it's better to buy in a store because you can see how things are actually like, right? You can see how the items are like. It's a great reason, but you need to say it as soon as you can. Initially, you said, I prefer shopping in a store because I think it's better to buy items there because you can see what they're like, right? So you are saying the same 2 times. So go right off with the question, right? I prefer buying from a store because you can see how the items are like. Okay, that's the only thing I'd say. And then your example was good. Maybe you do need some vocabulary related to shopping, right? So like try on sizes instead of the length of the dress. You can see the size of the dress. You can see if it fits you well, if it suits you. So that vocabulary maybe you're needing, right? But it was good. Any questions so far? Okay, our next question says, some people prefer to learn about current events from watching television news programs. Others prefer to read about current events in newspapers or on the internet. Which do you think is better? watching the news or reading the news? Explain why. Now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, so maybe Tamara? Go ahead.
I prefer reading the news in the newspapers because read is a good exercise for a brain, different the watch the TV. For example, you can memorize different elements for your comprehension about the situations, sociality situations. As a result, it's necessary have the information about the sociality, but practice exercise reading. Okay.
Okay. It's necessary to have, right, information about society. Careful with the pronunciation.
Okay.
Good. So what was your main reason to exercise reading? Or to comprehend better?
Exercise for to comprehend.
Okay, so it's important to exercise, to practice reading comprehension, and that way you will understand the news better, right? Than when you watch them. Okay, good. So yes, you could say reading stimulates our brain, it stimulates our imagination, or you could say, I don't know, but watching the news sometimes maybe too graphic, or maybe that by watching the news, you can do other things while you're watching them. So yes, I mean, I think it was a good argument. Don't forget to give examples though. You could say, for example, I was just reading about, and then you make up a news story, right? I was just reading about the new changes in Brazil's government. Even if it's not happening, you could make it up. All right, so just that. What I wanted to say, and a tip that I wanted to give you all, try to have a reason sheet. What do I mean by a reason sheet? Basically, a reason sheet is like a piece of paper, a document, anything in any form, where you're gonna start writing the reasons that you can think of, the reasons that you could be able to use in other questions as well, not just in one. So for example, these are some that I've written that I consider are very general that you could use in many cases, many different questions. You could always, for example, talk about efficiency, right? You can always say that you save time, you save money, you save energy doing something. Like, let's take this example of the news, right? You could say, I prefer watching the news because that way you can do other things at the same time and you save time, right? You can say, for example, every day I get up at 6 a.m., I turn on the TV, put the news on, and at the same time that I'm hearing and watching the news, I can be preparing my breakfast, I'm getting ready for work. So you're illustrating that idea. And it's something very simple, but that's something that does the job, right? Remember that your responses and your reasons and your examples do not have to be complicated to be good, right? You can have something very simple and still have a perfect score, as long as it is related, right? So go for simpler reasons. These are some that you could use that are very simple and that could be useful for many other things. Let's take the example of the news as well. You could say that you save money. You could say, I prefer watching the news because because I don't like reading in a digital way. So if I had to read the news, then I would have to buy the newspaper, which I don't want to do because I want to save money. So just by watching the news, you save money, right? So those are reasons that you could always use. Saving energy as well, saving effort. You could always talk about safety. You could say that, like, for example, same thing, right? It's better for your mental well-being not to see things that are too graphic on the news, probably. It's less risky, less risk of accidents, and this could go for different questions. To being in shape, to your mental well-being, so health, safety. You can always talk about productivity, right? You could say by reading, you can concentrate better. Or by reading, you have fewer distractions. You can say that something maybe is better because there are more things that are available to use. You have more access to information. You could say that you prefer watching the news because it's more updated information, for example. Or you could say that you prefer reading the news because you have access to more information on the internet. So you could also talk about the reliability of the information, right? You can always talk about learning more, gaining experience, gaining expertise, developing skills. You could try to look for some skills to mention, so leadership, organizational skills, communication skills. You can talk about sharing ideas, exchanging opinions. You could say, I prefer watching the news because that way I could exchange opinions with my family while we are having dinner, per se, right? You can acquire knowledge. This is kind of related to what Tamara was saying. So reading stimulates your brain, it stimulates your imagination. Maybe it's important to exercise your brain. And you can always talk about the experience as well. If you really don't know what to say, you could just say that you would just enjoy something more because of the experience on its own, right? You could say that something's more fun. So watching the news for me is just more fun. It's more entertaining than reading the news. Reading the news is boring. You could say that, right? It's more interesting. Reading the news is more quiet, more entertaining, more room for social life. It relieves the stress. You can talk about values, making mistakes, I don't know. So I'm gonna share this reason sheet with you guys, but you guys could add anything you want, right? You can create your own reason sheet, which is probably the best you can do. And that way you're gonna see that when you get questions, you will know already what types of reasons you can use, right? So it's gonna be easier for you to come up with ideas once that you've practiced enough and you've been writing down your reasons, right? So that was one tip and one suggestion I wanted to give you all. Is this okay? Do you guys have any questions, any comments? No questions, no comments? Okay. Hey guys, so let's continue practicing then. So the question says, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Your friends are the most important influence in your life. Use details and examples to explain your opinion. You will now have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, guys. So maybe who wants to go? Any volunteers? Nobody wants to try?
Perhaps I could do it.
Yes, of course, Christian. Go ahead, please.
Okay. I definitely disagree with the statement that your friends are the most important influence in your life, because in my opinion, parents are and family are the people that influence you the most, because you live with them, you have grown with them, you travel and they help you in the worst moments. I think that friends are sometimes with you, but not always. For example, I had friends from high school that were my best friends and also influenced me a lot, but they traveled to Russia and other countries and they are not here anymore. So to sum up, parents are the most important influence in your life.
Okay, good. Kristen, well done. So you had a good reason. Friends are not the most important influence because parents are. And you had a good explanation as well of the things because you spend more time with them, right? They are there for you or with you throughout your life, whereas your friends are just sometimes part of your life. And yes, you had enough details. You talked about how you travel with them, you grow up with them, right? And the comparison that you made with your friends, right? Your friends from high school, I think you said, who went away, right? So traveled somewhere and you didn't see them anymore. So it was good. It was really good. What could I say? Maybe just use some transitions, right? So you could say, on the other hand, your friends don't stay with you forever, right? Or whereas your parents, I don't know, will always be there for you, your parents might go away sometimes. So try to connect those ideas with some transitions. The only things, especially when you have contrast, that's a great chance of using those type of connectors. It was good. Well done, Christian.
Okay, thank you.
Nice. Now, our question here says, explain whether you agree or disagree with the following statement. All workers should have a guaranteed living wage regardless of what skills they possess. Then give specific details in your argument. Now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay. So who wants to go? Carolina, Elizabeth, you guys there? Then anyone else? Michaela, maybe? Do you want to try?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I strongly agree with the statement because I think have a guaranteed living wage. It's like a human right. For example, it doesn't matter it's a gardener or a policeman or an engineer. When they worked, they do their best, and it have to be um, uh, it had to be recognized.
Okay, good. I like the fact that you were thinking of the word, but you didn't get stuck, right? Maybe you probably used a different word that you wanted to, that the original one that you wanted to use, but you did continue with your response. I love it. I loved it. I really liked it. Good introduction, good reason as well. It's a human right, and good examples because you gave details, right? I honestly expected you to do that, to mention different types of occupations, a gardener, a policeman, and no matter what skills they have, they are doing their best, right? So they have to be recognized for their work. Great. Great argument as well. Okay. Okay. Any questions so far? I
I
was
have
gonna
a question. Sorry.
okay. Before your question, Michaela, sorry, I forgot. Careful with the conjugations, right? It has to be recognized instead of it have or it have. Yes, Tamara, go ahead, please.
For example, the examples, you say that the personal example, but affected note, if like the Michaela's example, the general policeman affected the note finally.
Okay. I mean, won't affect your score. The thing is, if we look at the way that they score your responses again, right? The thing that usually, I mean, the thing that they want first is for you to give details, right? So if you're able to give an example with enough details, it doesn't matter if it's personal or general, as long as it has details, you can have a perfect score. Second thing is grammar variety. Now, this is usually the hardest thing to get without personal examples. Because the thing with personal examples is they help you use a lot of grammar, right? You use other tenses mainly, which is something that proves your grammar in a way. So if you guys are able to show grammar variety without giving personal examples, that means you could use a conditional sentence, right? Here, it's a personal example. Sorry, it's a general example, right? So you could say, so if a gardener is doing their best at their work, then they should be recognized, right? That's a conditional sentence that shows grammar variety in a way, without necessarily using more than one tense or using a personal example. So there's nowhere in the rubrics that there's no part that says that personal examples are required to have a good score, to have a perfect score, but instead you should be aiming for having good grammar, having grammar variety, having enough details. So technically speaking, you could do that without personal examples, but I'm not gonna lie, the easiest way around to include all of those elements is by giving a personal example, right? Because it's the easiest way that you're gonna be able to have detail, to have grammar, to have vocabulary as well, and to illustrate your reason. So to summarize, you could totally get a good score and a perfect score without a personal example as long as you fulfill the requirements, right? Which are details, grammar, vocabulary, delivery, content. It has to be coherent, it has to be related, it has to be well explained, the time, and all of that. So no, it doesn't affect your score, but it does affect your score if you make mistakes, for example. So if because you want to give a personal example and you're forcing yourself to use an example in the past tense, but you're not ready to do that and you make mistakes, then that will affect your score, right? So keep that in mind. That's why I don't force you guys to give me personal examples, because it should be the thing that makes you speak better, right? Sometimes people get stuck with personal examples. They make more grammar mistakes with them. That's why I'm not requiring you guys to do it. So
Thanks.
that's what. Sure. Any other question? You guys? Now, this question here may be a little bit more difficult, and this is the very rare cases that we have for social issues, political issues, global issues, technology, environment. Remember those few topics that we saw yesterday? So this one here says, explain whether you agree or disagree with the following statement. All countries, including the US, Russia, and China, should not be allowed to possess nuclear weapons. Then give specific details in your argument. Now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your response. Okay. So who wants to go? Does anyone want to try this one? Nobody really? So let's think of reasons. What reasons could you guys give for one or the other? In favor and against of these countries using or possessing nuclear weapons? Can you think of any reasons?
Well, I think that it's unnecessary to have these weapons because they are so destructive and can cause a lot of damage for many years or decades.
Okay, good. I like that. So it's unnecessary to have and to possess these nuclear weapons because, as you said, they are so destructive. I'm sorry, destructive, right? They're so destructive. Am I saying that right? It doesn't sound right for some reason. Destructive. Okay. So they can cause so much damage that we can use them, right? Or these countries can actually use the weapons. So it's unnecessary for them to have them. And yes, that's true. Can we think of any examples we could give?
Yes, the most famous one, the World War II, when the US destroyed two important cities in Japan and thousands of lives were lost.
Exactly. Great. So yes, I know that this one looks a little bit hard, but I think like especially now with the new movie and everything, like it's something that that may be a little bit easier. But in any case, like if you didn't really know what to say, you could say, I think the most powerful argument is always going to be that these are very dangerous weapons, right? Very dangerous weapons that can cause a lot of damage. So they shouldn't be, so countries should not be allowed to possess them. It's unnecessary. So Christian, I think you already have your response, right? Why don't you try?
Okay, yes.
Go ahead, please.
All right. I couldn't agree more with the statement that all the countries, including the most powerful ones, shouldn't have nuclear weapons because they are so destructive and it's unnecessary to have such as dangerous weapons in the earth, since they can in minutes vaporize many countries and kill many people. And also they have terrible consequences in the future. For example, the weapons, the atomic bombs thrown in Japan that killed many lives.
Okay, good. That killed many people or that ended with many lives, right? Great, well done. Loved your response. No, nothing that I changed. I personally liked your introduction. I couldn't agree more. It's a really good phrase that you guys can use. And the only thing I'd say is just make sure that you leave enough time for the example. Make sure that you're not too close to ending your response when you say it. You could try to start a little bit earlier with the example, but it was good. Overall, it was an awesome response to a hard question. So congratulations, well done, Christian.
Thank you.
So, what do you guys think? What questions, what comments do you have? Any questions? No? Hey guys?
I have a question.
Yes, tell me please.
During the exam in the listening part, is there anyone watching you?
If you take the home edition,
Yes.
right? Like if you take the test in a test center, there's always going to be somebody there watching you, right? Now, if you take the test at home, yeah, the same. You will have somebody there. Your camera should be on at all times, including the listening section. And there's going to be a proctor or an evaluator watching you throughout the entire test. So yes, for the entire test, you will be watched.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sure thing. You guys have any other questions? No, no questions? Okay, guys. Then please, before you go, don't forget today's survey. It should be on your screens. And I will be seeing you all tomorrow. Thank you, guys. See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.